Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Buyer's Table, the Supply Chain and Logistics Edition. I'm Leandra. I run Platform and Network here at Forum Ventures. For anyone who isn't familiar with us yet, Forum Ventures is the leading early stage fund, accelerator, and AI venture studio for B2B startups. We were founded in 2014 with a mission to make the founder journey easier, more accessible, and more successful for the very earliest stages. So this year alone, we're investing in more than 55 companies, and we're also building companies from scratch through our venture studio. So if you're a founder or you know one in the supply chain and logistics space or another space, we'd love to talk. Quick context for what we're doing today. This is not a pitch competition. Five early stage founders are going to present directly to a panel of enterprise supply chain and logistics operators. And our judges are going to respond the way that they actually would in a real vendor evaluation. So they'll be asking honest questions and giving real reactions. If something wouldn't move them to act in real life, they're going to tell you that right here. So on the panel today, I want to introduce our panelists that you'll hear from a bunch in a bit. We have Christy Montgomery, who's the VP of Innovation, Research, and Development at Kenco Logistics. Andy Johnston, Senior Director of Design Engineering and Innovation at Geodis. Travis Nixon, Chief Data and AI Officer at Dollar General, and Allison Ulrich, founder of Potentiate OS. Excuse me. Thank you all so much for being here and for giving your time to these founders. Each company will have 5 minutes to present, followed by 5 minutes of Q&A and feedback from the judges. But first, after each presentation, we're going to do a quick rapid fire questions to kind of take the temperature of the room. So I'll be asking you to hold up fingers 1 through 4. So 1 being not at all, 4 being very much. And I'll be asking quick questions like, how urgent and costly is this problem for your organization today? How likely are you to actually pilot or buy something like this in the next 12 months? And how well would this fit into your existing workflows without creating more work for your team? So again, you'll just hold the fingers up. This will be the jumping off point for our conversations. And if you have very polarizing reactions, we certainly want to hear from you what prompted those reactions and what you're thinking about. So the order of presentations is up on the screen right now. We're going to start with Andrew Bell at L2 Labs and then go to Kevin Ghim, Abdu Kholmatov, Maanav Iyengar, and Dalton Dwyer. Sorry if I butchered any of your names. And so without further ado, we're going to bring Andrew onto the stage.
Okay, great.
Andrew, when you're ready, we'll start.
All right. And everyone can see this okay? All right, great. So hello, everyone. My name is Andrew Bell, and I'm the founder and CEO of L2 Labs, and we're building machine intelligence for data mapping and integration. I would like to start this talk by actually talking about the story behind L2 Labs. So my background is actually technical. I hold a PhD in computer science from New York University with a focus on AI and machine learning. And during my PhD, I actually spent one summer at a supply chain technology company building a seasonal replenishment solution that was deployed with a Fortune 100 spice manufacturer. In its first year, we were able to recover about $600,000 of lost sales. And this was a really important experience for me because it taught me how much impact AI and machine learning can have in the supply chain. But there was also a more foundational discovery. So in talking with the spice manufacturer, I learned that in order for them to do business with any new customer, any new logistics provider, warehouse, there were integrations that need to be set up behind the scenes that were generally set up manually and by hand. And so this became the seed of L2 Labs, where we asked this question, can we take some of the technology that I was developing during my PhD and apply this to automate the integrations that exist behind the supply chain? So while I started this project as a solo founder, we are now a team of 4 with experience across machine learning and startup engineering. We currently have $160,000 in ARR from an enterprise deployment, and we've raised $875,000 to date. And before I tell you a little bit more about our technology, I have to introduce you to the world of electronic data interchange, or EDI. For those unfamiliar, EDI is probably the most important piece of global infrastructure that you've never ever heard of. It's a protocol that is used by 300,000 companies every single day to exchange invoices, purchase orders, shipping notices, and other business critical documents. It's especially prevalent in supply chain, and in the US alone, the market is valued at about $2.3 billion. But there's a core problem. over half of all the work done in EDI is done manually, and this results in real business impacts. So first, this manual work can actually delay revenue. In order for any warehouse, customer, logistics provider to go live, this integration has to be in place. Second, we learned in conversations with Unilever that change work can actually become a bottleneck in EDI, as business projects often move faster than EDI teams. Third, this is an area where errors actually have real costs through the form of chargebacks, missed shipments, or invoice failures. It's estimated that as much as 1% of EDI-enabled revenue is actually lost due to errors. And fourth, there's tribal knowledge that creates business risk. Often these integrations are set up and the knowledge of how they work lives in one person's head. And if they go away, it jeopardizes the business relationship. These are the exact 4 problems that we are solving at L2 Labs. So we've built a mapping platform, Alloy, that automatically translates and maps EDI data, reducing cost, time, and errors. It works exactly the same way an EDI engineer does. It takes in implementation guides, knowledge about EDI, past mappings, and it's able to produce production-ready EDI integrations automatically. Importantly, it also sits on top of a company's existing EDI infrastructure, which means we're able to modernize them without disrupting any of the existing connections or workflows that exist today. As I mentioned at the beginning of this talk, this is currently live in production, and it's been proved out with the company TrueCommerce, which is a top 3 B2B integration company. It's being used every single day and has cut mapping time by 74.5%. This is translated into real business impacts. We've accelerated revenue and time to value by shrinking the time it takes to add a partner from 14 to 3.6 days. We've been able to prevent those costly operational failures by reducing error rates by half. This year, we're projected to save them $265,000 in operational costs, which means for them that they can do way more EDI work with the same size team. And we've also been able to learn a lot of this custom business logic and embed it in our platform, reducing that key person dependency that we talked about earlier. I'd like to talk a little bit about where we're headed next. So our goal here is really to transform the EDI industry and how supply chains connect. Right now, we're in active pilot discussions with 5 companies, including Unilever and mid-market EDI companies. And this really speaks to the 2 types of customer profiles that we're trying to speak to. The first are EDI companies, and the second are suppliers, logistics providers, and retailers where EDI is a heavy burden. And I'd like to close actually with this quote that just landed in my inbox last week from a prospective customer, where they wrote, "The more we reflect on our conversation, the more excited we become about the potential of your AI tools. We believe they have the potential to be a true game changer for our business." And this is really what we're trying to do in this EDI space, is transform the relationship that companies have with their integrations. And so thank you all very much for your time. And I hope that our next enterprise collaboration can actually begin right here in this room. Okay. All right.
Leandra, if you're muted.
Thank you, Christy. I'm going to start with some rapid fire questions so that we can anchor the temperature of the room. So you're going to show fingers 1 through 4. How urgent and costly is this problem for your organization today?
That's a good question.
Let's go ahead and hold them up.
Thinking.
Is it 1 being not?
1
what's
is
the
not
rank?
urgent at all, and 4 is very urgent.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So, okay, we got a 2, 2, 2, 2. Great. Okay, next question. How likely are you to actually pilot or buy something like this in the next 12 months? 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay. And how well would this fit into your existing workflow without creating more work for your team?
Maybe a 2.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, that's an important question. Are we allowed to come in and talk through it at all?
Now I would love for you to do that. So the feedback should begin, and I'll let you take it away.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big question for me, and I would need to ask a bit more on how we would activate this, make sure we're using it to full extent and things like that. So that would be an open question. If I got good answers to that, then it would lift up the answer to the second question. The one, I don't think that we're mature enough to use your solution to its fullest extent.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
My biggest concern. And we have so many high importance, lower level opportunities. And what I'd love to understand is there ways that we can make sure that that value doubles down into those more urgent opportunities, at which point then it would be a ride-along initiative to go with those other ones. And if there's friction in implementation and it causes a delay to those others, that would be something that would be a do not pass go kind of thing. So that's top of mind for me.
Yeah, absolutely. The way that we've kind of designed our approach for implementing the solution is this idea of modernization without disruption, because we found that the most important thing for most companies when it comes to EDI is that it's not disrupted and it doesn't break. And so what we've actually done is we've built out integrations into existing translators and EDI platforms. So I'm not sure what infrastructure you have, but for example, we've worked with Boomi and SAP and Clio. And the idea is that our platform actually sits on top and helps automate all of the operations that are happening within that platform. And so, yeah, I actually love to hear how, I don't know if we're allowed to ask questions back, but what your EDI technical stack looks like at Dollar General.
Well, I would suggest that we grab some time. I don't want to soar.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Absolutely. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Andrew, I would just say I feel like, that probably on our side of the house, we're pretty buttoned up at how we do integration, and we have playbooks in place and standards. Mm-hmm. I think the challenge is when it's coming from the other side. It's our customers, it's their suppliers, it's I really need them to use your platform, less so us to use your platform, if that makes sense. I hope that makes sense to you. But really, we have absolutely. A long history of doing things a certain way, and we have a pretty good structured way of doing that. And I think we have a pretty good buttoned up process. So that's the only reason why you didn't get high ratings from me. It's definitely a problem. It's definitely an urgent problem, I think, in the industry. I just feel like maybe less of a challenge in my space, in the 3PL space. I don't know if Andy would agree with that, but I feel like that's kind of the challenge for me.
Yeah, I was going to just tag on to that, Christy, and say it's the same for us. I mean, we have very strict standards and processes that we use for EDI, and we don't like to change those just to keep it consistent on our side. So same comments as Christy.
Yeah. That makes sense. I would be curious if you ever experience bottlenecks or anything adding partners, or this always comes from waiting from the trading partner on the trading partner side.
I think it's more waiting for them, or them not understanding how to get their data to us, or they don't have systems that are some of their systems are really outdated and legacy, and so challenges there potentially. I think it's intriguing to me if you had an option that could, this is nirvana, right? Take a file that they send, whatever that looks like, figure out what that data is, and then give it to me in my standards.
Oh yeah,
There's
so absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So would need more time to kind of unpack the technical details, but that is actually one of our workflows. So we take EDI messages or samples that are provided by a partner, and then we're able to generate mappings based on that. And also, since we're working with a variety of different customers and have a variety of different engagements, the idea here is that we're also learning from other relationships that have been built up, so that we can make better, like when we put things in place, they're less likely to cause errors and break downstream. But yeah, this is really great feedback. I really appreciate hearing this.
Yeah, I would say similar to the worlds that Christy and Andy live in. And then, my past experience. So I work with scaling organizations, in the world that Forum operates in, but also, scaling D2C brands. And I think the world that, Travis is in, and the world that I'm comfortable sitting in, is, to your point, like, change work is definitely always a huge bottleneck.
Yeah.
And no matter if it's for anybody on this call, that is a key statement. And I think the piece would be understanding, to what Christy and Andy mentioned about how they're buttoned up and how they operate relative to, the opportunity for you to talk to them offline with the questions that they just had. But that is a direct correlation, I think, into how, there's the opportunity to actually connect with more of the D2C brands, to learn to understand what you have available, especially, when, you're talking about working with someone like True Commerce. They're large. They're very well known. So I think that's the angle, for like greater discovery, is in relation to, why it would be important for someone like Travis or myself, for like context that I have relative to like where Christy and Andy are.
Makes a lot of
I'm so
sense.
sorry to cut this short, everyone, but we can
Thank you.
certainly make connections offline. But I want to make sure our next presenter has time to go. So Kevin, you can take
Thanks
it
so much,
away. And
everyone.
Andrew, thank you so much.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Ghim. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Summoner. Summoner is the agent workspace between companies, systems, and teams. We help enterprises coordinate workflows that cross organizational boundaries, especially where multiple companies, systems, and approvals are involved. Supply chains already have systems of records like ERP, WMS, TMS, and financial platforms. But when exception happens, the actual coordination still moves into emails, spreadsheets, PDFs, calls, and manual follow-ups. The information may exist, but it is spread across different organizations and systems. Someone still has to gather it, reconcile it, and get approval, and keep everyone aligned. That manual coordination layer is where delays and lost context happens. So Summoner provides a shared coordination layer across those systems and companies. Each organization keeps control of its own tools, data, permissions, and agents. Inside a shared space, agents can bring together relevant context, surface the decision that needs to be made, and pause for human approval, and record what each party is responsible for next. So Summoner does not replace ERP, TMS, or WMS. It coordinates the work that happens between them. So rather than explaining this abstractly, I'll show a shipment exception involving retailer, supplier, and 3PL, each operating through a separate controlled system. So this is a Summoner space. For resolving shipment exception involving a retailer represented by me, supplier represented by my CTO Remy, and a 3PL represented by our engineer Shub. So Kevin invites Remy and Shub into a space. Each company connects its own tools and keeps control of its data and permissions. Each participant adds agents to represent their organization. Summoner gives those agents a shared space to coordinate the workflow. First, the retailer's agent retrieves inventory from Kevin's Microsoft 365 account. The retailer has 250 units available, demand of 200 units per day, and authority to approve up to $1,500 in expedited cost. Next, the supplier agent retrieves Remy's production update. 600 units are available now, while the remaining 400 are delayed for 48 hours because of quality inspection. The 3PL then provides the transportation options, including expediting the first 600 units for an additional 1,250. The thinking agent combines information from all three companies. The retailer only has just over a day of inventory. The 48-hour delay would create an estimated shortfall of 150 units. So the agent recommends expediting the 600 available units now and shipping the remaining 400 later. The $1,250 cost is within the retailer's approval limit, but the agent still pauses for human approval. So I approve the recommendation. So Summoner turns that approval into a shared action plan. The supplier releases the available unit, the 3PL arranges expedited transportation, and the retailer monitors inventory and delivery. The space records the decision and reasoning and the approval and each company's next action. So what you just saw there was three organizations using separate systems and agents to reach one coordinated permissions traceable decision. The retailer kept control of its Microsoft 365 data. The supplier and 3PL kept control of their Google environment. And Summoner coordinated the decision across them. That's the role we see Summoner playing, the shared workspace where agents coordinate work across companies without forcing everyone into one platform. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Kevin. If you could stop sharing your screen so we can see all of our judges. Wonderful. Okay, we're going to do the quick rapid fire questions and then you can jump right into feedback. So from 1 to 4, how urgent and costly is this problem for your organization today? 1, 2, 3, 2. Okay. How likely are you to actually pilot or buy something like this in the next 12 months? 2, 2, 1, 2. And how well would this fit into your existing workflows without creating more work for your team? 1, 1, 1, 1. Okay. So please feel free to share why you rated things the way that you did with Kevin. And Kevin, feel free to ask clarifying questions. We'll let the feedback start now.
I think it's a really cool solution. What comes to mind is the contrast between this solution and enabling something through our own MCP or A2A endpoints. And then, so what incremental value is there above and beyond that?
Yeah, so one of the things that we do to prepare for our engagements in pilots and otherwise is to create reusable components. So a lot of the tools that are used and services that are used in supply chain repeats over and over. So, I gave you the example of using Microsoft 365 and Google Workspace. Those two alone cover about 90% of the kind of OSs. The other parts are, individual tools. It could be SAP, CRMs like Salesforce. Those have all been integrated as well. So, the onboarding part is a lot easier, but that addresses the internal workflow solution. But what differentiates us is, as you saw, is multiple companies, of course, represented by individuals right now in the demo, can come together and share data and information through a secure space. That's what differentiates us between just an MCP, which calls a tool that enriches the LLM or prompting or communication between the tool and the model, versus a kind of a communal space that can be gathered for agents from different organizations and still communicate and exchange data securely. So our real mode is the cross-boundary communication and data exchange.
Who owns the agent that's represented there? Is this an agent that is built on your platform, or we bring our agent to your platform?
You can bring your own agents. So all we need is, so your agents will have their own key, and that all the data that is stored within your data is yours. I mean, your agent is yours. So that is not, we don't consume that. We just provide the communication layer that is encrypted and private and safe between multiple agents communicating with each other.
I don't want to hog all the time, but I do have one more question. Probably one of the bigger challenges to me on this is a lot of the vendors we work with aren't very far on their agent journey. And so we can put agents forward. And I think I would have to dive deeper with you on the use cases and the scope and how to control all these things and things like that. But the concept is there. And I like that capability because it shortcuts a lot of what we would have to otherwise build in the cloud in order to host this kind of thing. What happens for the 95% of our current vendors that don't have agents and that capability and aren't very far in that journey? Is the value gated by the sophistication of the people we work with?
Yeah, I mean, the way I like to think about this more is, not in terms of building agents or using agents in particular, but really coordinating between disparate systems. So, WMS doesn't talk to your CMS, or CRM, the ERP doesn't talk to the IMS. And these are all coordinated through humans right now. And some of the pilots that we have right now is precisely to lower that cost of human coordination between taking an output from Asana, taking that PO data and putting that into an email template and repeating that over and over. So of course, there is some intelligence involved with the models and the LLMs, and it's useful because LLMs can understand human language as well as schema data too. And the coordination, therefore, is alleviated because of the glue that agents can perform. So far in our pilots, we're seeing a savings of anywhere from 5 to 10 hours a week per person within one department. But of course, that has a multiplying effect because it's not just that person; it's the coordination that is shared between multiple parties that we're saving time on.
So thank you so much, Kevin, for presenting, and thank you all for your feedback. Next up, we have Elmeeda, so I'm going to bring Abdu to the stage. Thank you, Kevin.
Hello, everyone. One second. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Hi, everyone. My name is Abdu. I'm co-founder and CEO of Elmeeda, and we're building the decision and coordination layer for fleet maintenance. A little bit about myself. Prior to starting Elmeeda, I spent about 5 years as a maintenance manager at a long-haul trucking company. We had about 500 trucks. Just in equipment, I was managing more than $40 million worth of equipment. And my day-to-day was being this human API layer between all the different tools that we use, like telematics, TMS, maintenance, compliance platforms, broker and shipper platforms. And whenever we had an issue with one of our trucks, a breakdown on the road, I had to connect to more than 10 different tools that we used and get a little bit of context from telematics, TMS, maintenance, fuel platforms, compliance, collect it in my brain or use a note taker or Google Sheets and make it work with phone calls to brokers, shippers, vendors, shops that we needed to get the trucks to, and the truck drivers to repair the truck as soon as possible and make sure that the supply chain of our customers and shippers is not affected. And because that data was so fragmented and the process itself was so manual, I knew that I was making a lot of bad decisions. So I decided to build Elmeeda as a product that I wish I had when I was a maintenance manager. And since we started, we've interviewed more than 100 fleet managers, and we see the same picture across the board. A lot of the decisions when it comes to on-the-road breakdown coordination, maintenance coordinations are rushed. And because of that, nationwide, fleets lose more than $25 billion in unplanned downtime and missed warranty opportunities every single year. So we're building Elmeeda to address that specifically, and we're being very deliberate in how we build it. Because when I was a fleet manager, we had a lot approaches from a lot of tech companies and startups trying to build solutions in our space, but they would say, hey, we could make this much ROI or optimize your operation by 2x, 3x, 4x. But when we looked at implementing their solution, we would have to replace a data source or a piece of software that we already used. We had to retrain our coordinators, migrate all the data, effort, all the time, invest all the time, effort, and money into this process. And if we end up not liking the product, we'd be left with a mess. And I know that that's the picture across the board. So the beauty of working with Elmeeda is that fleets don't have to change anything about their operations and anything about the data source they already use, because we treat all of those data sources as raw data and turn it into our intelligence, operational intelligence running through our internal models. And we make the best decision on behalf of our customers whenever there's a breakdown in selecting shops, selecting the parts, really diagnosing the mechanical issue that's going on with the truck or trailer, and helping them coordinate the entire breakdown coordination to protect their downtime, to make sure that the cargo is back on the road or is recovered by another truck from their fleet as quickly as possible so their customers stay happy. This is an example of how our agents operate. So as soon as one of our trucks get a fault code or a breakdown from the driver feedback, we try to dig deep into the mechanical data of the truck and analyze what parts and components that are being affected by the breakdown. And then we start looking for shops, vendors, parts vendors, to try to understand what's the next best decision for us to make sure that we repair the truck and we recover the cargo. Our technology is on track to save more than $6 million in maintenance and uptime for the 6 contracted fleets that we're working with right now. We're part of the Palantir Startup Fellowship. We have a paid pilot, an active paid pilot with one of the biggest fleets in the US, Werner Enterprises, that haul a lot of cargo for Dollar General, by the way, Travis. I think you'd find it interesting. And we have technology partnerships with huge telematics platforms like Samsara, Platform Science, et cetera. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, there we go. Okay, let's do the rapid fire questions. So 1 to 4. How urgent and costly is this problem for your organization today? All right. How likely are you to actually pilot or buy something like this in the next 12 months? Okay, we got a 4 here from Travis. How well would this fit into your existing workflow without creating more work for your team? Okay, well, I think this is a great jumping off point for the discussion, so we'll let you take it from here.
Yeah, Abdu, just to let you know, the only reason I gave you 1s across the board is because we don't own any assets. So
same boat. So
yeah, makes sense. We do work with we're speaking with brokerages as well to get access to the carriers that they work with, because there's a lot of value in supply chain visibility for them as well, right? So you can say what's the maintenance program of the carriers that you're taking through your RFP process to make sure that your supply chain is not going to be affected by any breakdowns.
So I believe that we're number 3 after Walmart and Amazon for largest private fleet, and we're actively looking at solutions along this. So we should talk, Abdu. I don't have questions except to say that I think I'm just going to hook you in with the right people and have those conversations, and let's see where the value comes.
Definitely, yeah. Would love to speak to them, and we work with one of your biggest carriers as well, right? Werner Enterprises. So it's we're seeing very good results with them.
Great, so when we meet, it'd be great to get if they're willing to come and talk about their experience with you at the same time, that'd be powerful.
100%. I spent an entire week last week at their headquarters in Omaha, and we built and fully deployed a solution in just 5 days for them. So I think they're going to have good feedback for you.
Great.
I think a different angle that I have is, when I used to work for brands, this is an area in which, depending on where an organization is, first off, they're looking for a 3PL, and sometimes a 3PL does have fleet services and they try to pitch it. Other times, a D2C is working with a third-party carrier. This area is fascinating, I think, no matter the world that you live in, because of the downtime. And there's so much gray area that a D2C brand doesn't understand about how this impacts them, whether they're large or small, right? And I think that's an interesting storyline component. While D2C brands don't own their fleet, they are impacted by this. And it's that level and layer of visibility that, is important to someone like Travis or, 3PLs, where, having that context and being able to speak to how that improves KPIs, not only for, a fleet or a 3PL, organization, but how that trickles down to the brands themselves, because that's the detail that people don't really think about. It's like, just get my shit out the door. Why is it not going? And it's not, they need this whole additional story, but you have a lot of opportunity, I think, in regards to learning, and you've got clearly phenomenal contacts and partnerships going. I think from my side of the fence, I know of some 3PL opportunities where they do have their fleets that I think would just be great contacts for you to connect with them. So this would be super helpful.
Yeah, appreciate it, Allison. And when it comes to non-asset-based logistics companies, Andy and Christy, so we talked to the chief compliance officer at Target as well, and they don't run a lot of their own trucks, as you guys know. They see a lot of value in the visibility of their supply chain, right? I think our instant cargo recovery decisions for the trucks that are broken down is extremely helpful for shippers and brokers too. So I'd love to talk about it maybe later.
Thank you so much, Abdu. We will make sure to make these connections offline. And now we'll have Maanav from Retina Robotics. Maanav, putting you on stage. Thanks, Abdu.
Oh,
all right, take it away.
Yeah, nice to meet you all. Hi, Christy. Nice to see you again. My name is Maanav. I am the co-founder and CEO of Retina Robotics. I have done robotics my entire life. I've spent my whole life growing up around warehouses, which is why I think my team and I are uniquely positioned and will bring the warehousing world one step closer to a truly hands-free scanless future. Really, the challenges that we are solving here that we typically see across most, if not all, warehouses are inventory inaccuracies, warehouse inefficiencies. When we talk about inaccuracies, I believe that the root of all inventory inaccuracies are fulfillment errors or misplacement. I think that's where all of them start. And when we talk about inefficiencies, either warehouses are moving too slow or slower than they would like to be moving, or they have too many people on staff. I typically see this inverse relationship between how accurate you are and how efficient you are. I don't believe it needs to be that way. I think that can be a positive relationship. You can be faster while maintaining extremely high levels of accuracy. But the bigger problem, I think, within this country is that fewer than 15 to 20% of warehouses have any sort of automation at all. And that's something that I'm going to solve. And we are doing so with our compact plug-and-play robotic device that we call our WAM. It's short for the Warehouse Automation Module, but between us, it doesn't stand for anything. I just call it that because it's catchy. It's this device that you can mount to any existing MHE, anything you want, doesn't really matter. And in real time and fully autonomously, it will scan, count, dimension, and track inventory on behalf of the operator. And all of our WAMs communicate with each other across the warehouse, much like ants in a colony would or schools of fish. Now, our WAM does three things really, really well. And I'll start with each of those three use cases. The first one is what we call real-time pallet tracking. So just by taking our WAMs and putting them on the front and back of your vehicle, as you drive into your pallets as you normally would without changing the way that you do anything, we will scan and validate those pallets against the outbound order so you never pick the wrong pallet ever. We will track the locations of all pallets so you don't put them away in the wrong spot. We will dimension pallets just by looking at them and capture images of pallets from inbound all the way to outbound inside that truck for claims and traceability purposes. So your customer can't say that they didn't get the right product when A, we knew they got the right product, and B, we have proof. And one of our customers, the one that you see in this video, went straight from pen and paper to our WAMs. They skipped the barcode scanner because they didn't want to relabel all of their pallets. And all of these labels came from their existing customers and vendors. So our second one is what we call continuous drive-by auditing. It's what happens when you take our WAMs and you put them on both sides of the vehicle pointed outward into the aisles. Now, just by driving as you normally would or stopping to pick, put away, it doesn't really matter. We will scan, count, dimension, and track all inventory on both sides of you, pointed at the aisles. And what makes us really unique is that we can see boxes behind boxes, unlike drones or traditional AMR systems, because we are watching you actively handle it during that point. And we aren't necessarily dependent on that label when identifying a piece of inventory. We try to use things like its visual features to make an assumption as to what that item could be and cross-referencing it against a vendor list. So if you are looking for something and say it doesn't have any sort of label on it, you have no idea where it is, all you have to do is type in what you think it looks like, maybe when you think it might have come in, and we will surface the exact item that you are looking for just off its visual features alone. Right? So just like this here. And what we consider our crown jewel and is still in active development is case level pick validation. Now, instead of having to scan and count every single case, bring it to a QA station, scan and count it again before packing and shipping it out, making yourself slower, maybe having a lot of extra people on staff just to validate your inventory, we will scan and count every single case at the moment of you picking it and putting it on your vehicle. We don't necessarily need that label either. We will use its visual features, its size, shape, color, any sort of markings on it, look at where it's being picked from, its source location, and any sort of historical data we have on that item to, again, make an assumption as to what it could be and validate it so you don't ever pick the wrong box during that life cycle. And you don't need to validate after the fact. Our pickers are validators. And with our system, we believe that we are, our primary advantages are that we are operationally agnostic from inbound to outbound. We can manage any sort of inventory, and we are not necessarily dependent on that label either. And the reason why I believe we are going to help bridge the gap with that remaining 80% of warehouses that don't have automation is because we are built for just about any warehouse, whether you are multi-deep racking, case picking, bulk storage, VNA, or maybe you don't want to change the way that you do things from an operational infrastructure perspective. Maybe you're high velocity or you're an SMB that's getting priced out. We have a universal solution that works for any warehouse, and most of these being underserved. We solve the toughest challenges. And with our system, I will guarantee ROI in that first month. We will impose no operational or infrastructure changes. We will subtract steps, not add steps. And we will work to eliminate manual scanning, whether it's scanning inventory, validating inventory, auditing inventory. By doing so, we can maintain near perfect accuracy and double your picking and put away speeds. So that's a quick brief as to what we're doing here. I'd like to open the floor to any questions you might have.
Thank you so much, Maanav. Can you unshare your screen, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, we'll start with the rapid fire questions. How urgent and costly is this problem for your organization today? 1 to 4. 3, 4, 4, 3. Okay. How likely are you to actually pilot or buy something like this in the next 12 months? 4, 4, 3, 3. Okay. And how well would this fit into your existing workflows without creating more work for your team? 3, 2, 2.
That's what I want to ask about, Leandra.
Okay, so go ahead and start the feedback.
How much labor are you planning on in the maintenance, upkeep, battery replacement, wiping off lenses and things like that of these machines? How much overhead am I going to have to plan for if we deploy this?
We really haven't seen a ton. The back WAMs are, most of the WAMs are typically hardwired into the forklift. It's the front WAM during pallet tracking, because it's mounted to the backrest, that typically needs a drill battery. So say you're going with case pick validation, I wouldn't have you swap the batteries. You would just hardwire it into that battery directly. I've only seen lens fogging be a concern in cold environments. We like to stay away from deep freeze or cold environments in general, and especially at our current stage. But and we're typically on top of it. We have a network of technicians that can be on site within 5 business days max.
Who would you say is your closest competitor right now in this space?
I think the vision space is really interesting. I've seen stationary cameras. There are drones, mobile robots that drive through aisles. But our biggest competitors by far and away, Gather AI and Corvus Robotics with their vehicle-mounted systems. Though they don't have auditing solutions, they mainly compete with us on the pallet tracking side. But nobody today has a solution that can solve for cases. I think that's where we've been seeing the most amount of interest, especially at the enterprise and larger mid-market level. Though smaller companies like us for just about all of it. The biggest thing is we're really not pricing anybody out.
How do you work with, if you're at a 3PL, how do you work with them in regards to all the different clients and the profile of the boxes? I know this is very high level.
Yeah, it helps to have an inventory list, some sort of master list on hand, whatever you have, right? We'll start by cross-referencing it, understanding during that initial deployment period where we're seeing issues, right? If you have a master list and we're seeing something and maybe the label isn't giving us a lot of great information, or maybe it's not even visible at all, there's going to need to be that period of correction where we update that master list with you. This is mainly designed for 3PLs where your inventory is constantly changing. We try to be as agnostic as possible. In Continental's case, our first customer ever, every single one of these labels is totally different. The information that's contained within, we try to look for key features and understand what shows up on your pick sheets, what shows up on your receiving list, what shows up on just about everything to best extract that data.
no one goes again, I'll go. How have you been utilized? Have your services been utilized at a 3PL in regards to being considered like a huge time saver when it comes to like an annual or quarterly like physical inventory audit for a brand? I mean,
Definitely.
okay.
Yeah. We work with a pretty big beauty and apparel brand and 3PL. I would say one of the biggest things is they had like 30,000 SKUs across 3,000 locations. It was physically impossible to audit, and it was a VNA, so you can't send a drone or a mobile robot through there regardless. I think the big problem was that they just couldn't even audit it in general, and their customer was asking for it. And they were willing to pay a lot of money for it too. They brought us in at $1,000 a month, compared to drone systems that'll charge you 10 grand a month. So we're talking 12,000 a year. That those aisles were getting audited every single day as their vehicles were driving through. And we found hundreds of thousands of dollars in missing inventory. I mean, if something is lost, you can't find it; it's gone, right? Especially in those aisles. That's just one example. For another customer, we're saving anywhere between 1.5 to 3 minutes per put away by eliminating those scans, right? Which is huge. They were seeing tens of millions of dollars in losses in inbound across all of their 3PLs in their network. This customer here, I mean, they used to have an error just about every single day. They haven't reported errors in the past 3 months, and they've improved sales by 5% because they're confident enough to take on more inventory. So, whatever it is, I'll solve it.
Thanks. That's great.
Thank you so much, Maanav. That
Yeah.
takes us just to time.
For sure.
And last but certainly not least, we have Dalton from Pakket AI.
Hi, everybody. So I know on the last one, I'll try to go really quick. And Christy, I know you have to drop. Great to meet you all. My name is Dalton Dwyer. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Pakket. My background is in video engineering. Before this, I spent 3 years deploying warehouse robotic systems to warehouses across the US. And something we found when we were deploying those systems is we would often work with the warehouse operations manager, who would coordinate where our robot should be going, what forklift should be doing, what the people should be doing around the warehouse, the trailers coming in and out, making sure trailers aren't delayed or back charged. And they have a tricky job, the warehouse op managers, because they can't be everywhere at once. They can walk around, but they can't see everything live at the same time to make sure things are going correctly. And that can sometimes lead to delays or errors. But most warehouses have some sort of CCTV system that's in place. So our idea is to build a warehouse-specific CCTV system. And it tracks everything moving around the site. It provides a live dashboard for the ops manager. It counts every pallet that comes in and out of the warehouse, takes photos of it, records where it is, and then it also automatically calculates the efficiency of all your MHEs. So it says each vehicle is, let's say, running at 48% efficiency, which is calculated by how long it's driving with a pallet on the forks versus not a pallet on the forks. I'll show you a demo really quickly, and then we can move straight to questions. So this is a live warehouse. This is in Scranton, Pennsylvania. You can see forklifts moving around the site. This is where the ops manager sits in this office. You can see people moving. You can see in the yard, each trailer here, how long the trailer's been there for, how many pallets have gone in and out of the trailer. This is a list of all the deliveries that have come into this facility. So if you click on, let's see, this one, the top one had 22 pallets in, you can see a list of all the 22 pallets and a photo. So if our customer later gets called by one of their customers and they said, hey, you only sent us 21 pallets, you can show them this and say, actually, no, we have all 22 pallets here, and here's a photo of them. We are also hooking into their WMS system right now that's in process, so we know how many pallets should go on each trailer, and if there is a miscount, so if you put 25 pallets on a trailer when there should be like 24, we will send an alert to the ops manager to say, hey, there was a miscount on this trailer. And then this is the daily forklift utilization rate. So this is their 48% of the time today, forklifts were driving with pallets on their forks versus deadheading, which is driving without pallets or just being idle. So I'll pause there because I know people have to leave, and I would love to move into the question thing a little bit earlier. Sure.
Great. So let's start with the rapid fire questions quickly. How urgent and costly is this problem for your organization today? We have twos and threes. Okay. How likely are you to actually pilot or buy something like this in the next 12 months? Two, 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 two. And how well would this fit into your existing workflows without creating more work for your team? I got some ones, twos, fours. Okay, so we'll have a robust discussion. Go for it.
I think Travis should go. He's been doing a great job leading. You were the curveball there with the four.
I think that this system would fit into our current workflows without taking additional labor hours. Can you tell me about the physical hardware that you install or rely on for the solution?
Yeah, so it's just a small edge server. It plugs right into your server rack. That's it. Installation takes about 4 hours. Some warehouses have full camera coverage. So the warehouse I just showed you had pretty good camera coverage, and that's great. Some don't, in which case we partner with a local security vendor to put in more cameras where there are cameras missing.
Yeah, to me that would plug in pretty easily for us. I think it's worth the conversation. I'd want to dive in specifically into what kind of value we'd be able to get out of it, confidence thresholds, and the data that you're picking up, things like that.
Definitely. Yeah, thanks, Travis.
How do you deal with privacy issues that may arise?
Yeah, so we're dealing with a very large automaker now who are unionized. And our policy is we do not do any facial recognition. And all that data is stored on-prem, so in your facility. So they have given us a green light, and they're a pretty big auto union. Yeah.
Are you, even though you're not doing facial recognition, are you identifying like individual people for coaching or performance issues, or is it just that that's a person, but you don't know who that person is or who's driving that forklift?
Correct. We know it's a person, but we don't know who the person is.
How would you, from the lens of when I think of like being a D2C brand, and when I think about the way I worked with my 3PLs, it would be maddening for me when I would think X and Y would happen out on the floor. And again, it's not about discipline. It's more of like, why the heck did this happen? And I think I looked at your website ahead of time too. It's like these facilities all have, cameras set up and they're monitoring, but how do you work with, because I know also from the aspect of what's being loaded in and out of a truck with fleets, third-party fleet companies we would work with, getting those photos was really important, but it was almost this debate of the photo from the fleet driver versus like what the 3PL employees are talking about, like if there was a discrepancy. And my point is really anchored more on, how do you position this when you talk to prospects about what the difference is between their current camera systems, and are you alerting differently, or like what's the learning opportunity for improvement?
Well, we say, look, you have a CCTV system already. You probably only use it to replay maybe safety issues or security issues, but it could be doing a ton. Like by just plugging in this box, you could have all of this data very easily at your fingertips. And we find is if we show this to the ops managers, they get it pretty quickly. If we show it to the executives, there is like we always have to have like, okay, this is the ROI calculator. And our position is that we can probably reduce headcount by 8 to 12% by tracking utilization. So let's say like you have this third shift on a Tuesday night and their utilization rate is only like 20 or 25%, and your LMS doesn't pick it up or your WMS doesn't pick it up. We see everything that's going on, so we can tell, oh, these forklifts are either driving like without anything on their forks, and you can make them drive more efficiently, interleaving tasks, or they're idling most of the time, they're not doing a lot. So we think we have a pretty strong ROI calculation too.
Okay, thank you so much, Dalton, for presenting, and we're perfectly at time, so thanks everyone for staying on time. I want to give a special thanks to Christy, who just left, Andy, Travis, and Allison. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your feedback, and thank you everyone who's watching. We'll make the appropriate connections offline, but I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, guys.